And so, this moment, just as it is, without any ideas or concepts projected onto it. Just this moment, empty of projections, empty of evaluation and analysis. Just this moment, just this presence, simple and free. Whatever is longed for is what we live. If we are truly longing to know and live this divine reality, then it is lived. If what we are longing for is to be involved in the mind's meanderings and the projections of the world and the stories and the drama, then that is what we will live. Because it takes such a deep longing to stay so present with presence, to really notice what is here and what is true. It takes such a depth of presence, and it is the longing of the heart that allows presence to be present with presence, let's say. Because if what the heart is longing for is overshadowed by the mind and its habits, then it will seem very natural to just be involved in the conversation in your head, in the mind, because this is what has been learned. It's been learned to engage in the conversation. Engaging in the conversation is what distracts the attention away from its resting. So this moment, without projections, this moment just as it is free and peaceful, happy, clear, open. There is no agenda, there is no story. The story is superimposed by the mind's projections upon this open, clear moment. The curious thing is that all of the happenings that are the appearance created by the projections of the mind, all of the appearance of your life is only appearing to reveal who you are in truth, to reveal the true nature. It's not actually happening to get involved in the story. It's not actually happening to make a story that is what the me wants. And that's why so often the story is not what the me wants. When the me is challenged, when the me is not getting what it wants, this is the most incredible grace, because it's an invitation to come to presence and to be with your own consciousness, to be with your own nervous system, and come to an intimacy with yourself and the finer resonance of what you are in truth underneath the dense frequencies that we are so habituated to rest in, that we're so habituated to rest in the frequencies of the mind and engagement in the story. And this is why it takes such a longing of the heart to call us to this truth, to call us to open to something more, something so much more profound than the play of the world. And the grace of being able to have even an awareness that there is more to life than the story and being bound in the ignoring of the self. That there's so much more to being life, living itself in utter freedom, being pure happiness and joy, and opening to finer and finer values of the true nature through coming into such an intimacy with, we could say, with your nervous system, which is your own consciousness. And as we come into such an intimacy with your own nervous system, your own consciousness, you're of course coming into an intimacy with your true nature. And this comes about because we're not distracted away from the true nature. We're not following all of those strategies to numb and hide and mask up and ignore and distract away from the true nature. The true nature is this here now. This, whatever it is, this is the true nature. And when we can be here now in the face of absolutely anything that's appearing, we are in the free openness of knowing the true nature and not being distracted by the stories and the desire mechanism, which is essentially the me and the mind trying to exert will over the divine will. It's the me saying, well, this is what I want. This is what's convenient for me. This is how I want it to be. And all the while, absolutely ignoring the divine plan. In truth, the divine plan is playing out anyway. And so then what happens is resistance to the divine plan, right? But somehow there is this grace in it all. And whatever it brings forward in the nervous system is this incredibly profound opportunity to come to be able to feel the subtle frequencies, to be able really, we really go so much deeper than what feeling is imagined to be. But feeling is the word that we have. But feeling starts to open up to what we might call a subtle perception. And it's the subtle perception is the ability to feel the resonance of your true nature. It's the ability to feel the subtlety of presence, to feel the subtle frequency vibrations of presence, the aliveness of presence. Because when we can feel anything and everything, we start to be able to discern between the frequency and feelings of the density of a trigger or a charge, which is more like stress being released, and the subtle frequency of presence. We really open to recognize that it's all the same aliveness. But when we can open to the fine feelings, then we have this ability to discern and open to the true nature, because opening to true nature is the ability to stay resonantly attuned to the fine frequency of the divine light resonance, let's say, in order to know that you are one with that. So we can spend so much time trying to belong in the world, wondering, well, how do I fit into this world? And trying to find all kinds of ways of feeling like we fit in and that we belong. But the truth is that you belong to God. You belong to the divine. You will never find a true sense of belonging, however many clubs and gatherings you attend to find your tribe. It's not about tribe. It's about finding out that you belong to God, that you belong to the divine. And when you know you belong to the divine, you stop needing to belong in the world, and you can open to the freedom of just being yourself. And you find that belonging is in your own presence, that belonging is in being here now, because the wanting to belong isn't so much about where do I fit in to the picture. It's about finding out, oh, I'm creating the picture that I don't seem to fit into. So I can find out that all the ways I don't fit are all my resistances to God. All of the ways that I don't seem to fit are all of my holding patterns, all of my conditionings and my protections that are keeping me from knowing that I belong to God, right? So we can interchange the word God with divine, with wholeness, with love, with divine mother. The words don't matter, so don't let the word God put you off if it's not your thing, if it doesn't feel like it resonates, because through the learning and the conditioning of a life, we can have even a resistance to something as profound as the word God, because we can be holding concepts about what that is until we realize, oh, that's what it is. And oh, that's what I am in truth. Oh, that's what all is. That's all there is, right? This is what we're opening to, and we're opening through the finer frequencies of our own presence. So we can have these mythic ideas about what awakening is, and that we have to have some kind of shift, and we have to see from a different place, a shift in perspective. And now this is true. It is true that there is a shift in perspective, but the shift in perspective can only happen when we can sense with our consciousness the finer frequencies. So if we're setting ourselves up with the mind for some kind of experience, that awakening is some kind of experience, then we're always going to be looking for something more or something different. And we're going to miss the subtlety of what awakening is and how fine and profound and subtle this whole process of awakening to true nature is. If we're looking for the goal, we're looking from the me that wants to get. We're looking from the desire mechanism. Give me that. Get me out of suffering. Give me awakening. Let's get on with the show, right? Let me be free. Let's get on with the good stuff, says the me in the mind, right? But the me in the mind doesn't understand that when we actually start to really open to the fine frequencies of what awakening really is that we're awakening out of the character and all of these superimpositions and projections we make upon the moment. We're opening out of all of the layers that we burden this moment with through evaluation and analysis. And we are really learning to open to a fine frequency where we no longer need to protect and superimpose the moment with a whole bunch of projections and protections, that we can actually be so intimate with the moment because we know that the moment, just as it is, naked and raw and undressed, of projections is the true nature. It is the divine reality. So everything that we don't want, everything that we are resisting exactly what the divine is offering us in order to know the divine nature. And of course, none of this is about mental understanding, analyzing, therapeutics. It's about being able to be so present and to recognize in presence that there is a felt sense of being, that is just always here. It's so simple. It can seem ridiculous how simple it is, but that's why we have to qualify it with all of this intelligent explanation of what really is going on here. Because when we say to a mind that is bound in the story and the drama, it's just about presence. Just be silent. The mind says, how preposterous. It can't possibly be that. It cannot possibly be that, because I want to work for it and I want to have a big experience, and I want, oh, let's just notice, I heard about awakening and I heard this person say this, and that's what I want. Well, get over it, because what you want is not going to lead you to the true nature. And that's the thing, right? We keep looking around on YouTube until we find someone that's saying what we want to hear. Now that is my teacher, because that is what I want to hear, right? And then we spend a few weeks, months, years hearing what we want to hear until we realize that we're no deeper into truth than we ever were. But the ego has been entertained in all of the ways that it wanted. All of the ways that the me wants to be entertained are completely available, because the me can create all of those ways the me wants to be entertained. So that's why, you know, these ideas of manifestation, manifesting your world that gets spoken about in the law of attraction can seem true. And so the me can say, well, I can make a mood board and I can create what I want. Lovely, lovely, go ahead. Create exactly what you want. Have all the fun doing it. But that's not freedom, right? Have all the fun, have all the experiences, have all the ups and the downs, have all the moments where the me says, I create this, I'm co-creating my reality with God. I created it. I manifested a new this and a new that and a new this and a new that, right? It's like, great, lovely, but that's not freedom, right? At some point, there's a deeper call that says, you know, all of that, it's lovely. It's lovely while it feels satisfying. But when the divine starts to call from within and really starts to initiate a longing in the heart, there's nothing of the world that can feel satisfying. And however entertaining it is, it will never ever feel like it satisfies the deep longing of the heart. And that's why, however much we can feel like we're getting what we want in the world, we still have a feeling of something missing, or a deep, almost like a loneliness, which is really like an existential loneliness. Existential grief can still be right in there in the quiet moments when the experience isn't quite meeting our expectations. Can feel that deep existential loneliness to belong in a different way, that the mind can say, okay, what new experiences can we find to fill that gap, right? So we can live out a whole life playing that. And it can feel very satisfying for some beings. And that's totally okay, right? We're not here to make anyone wrong, but we are here to illuminate the way the play can play. And in that, illuminate how disappointing it can be. And the ways that we can imagine that disappointment is a lack in us that we need to find a way of filling. But really, the invitation in those moments is an invitation to say, can you be so present here now without a high, without a low even, because some beings are addicted to the lows as much as the highs. Can you just be here with what's here? Can you feel the sensations in your nervous system? Can you be so present that you're not looking for another experience? You're not looking for something else that fills the gap, that you can be so present with what is here and in your nervous system that you're not looking for that to even change. You're not even looking for any way out. You're just opening to such a depth of presence that it doesn't matter what's happening in your nervous system. It doesn't matter what the picture on the screen looks like, because the felt sense of your own presence is so awake and alive in the knowing of itself that it is just compelled with itself, and that it is not moving in the habits that say, change this, make it a better moment, have another experience, look for something more. It's just this ability to be so intimate with true nature, so intimate with the divine orchestration, that we can open to the finer and finer frequencies of our own nervous system through the resistances, through the stresses, and we can open to the intelligence that brings forward the information. This is all God. This is all divine. There's nothing here that's out of place. Stop trying to change it. Just be here. The way to end suffering is to be so present with suffering that there is no suffering because there's no resistance to it, right? Suffering is the resistance to what the me doesn't want. But when we start to be so present with what the mind says, I'm suffering, suffering disappears, because the thought I'm suffering dissolves into presence. The thought this is painful in presence disappears into this is just what's here, right? Instead of the thought, I want something different. I want to feel better. I want to feel more awake. I want to feel more happy, and right? It's this recognition that when we go through all that the me wants, we find that we already are in true nature. We're not just happy. Oh no, don't let it end there. We're not just happy. Don't settle for just being happy. Settle for being happiness, right? Only settle when there's nothing more that's longed for. Happiness. You are happiness. You are beingness. You are joy. You are the pure, untainted aliveness. We're not speaking of an experience that comes and goes, that says, oh, here's happiness. Oh, now here's sadness. It's just knowing this deep, contented happiness, presence of being that is not swayed or altered by whatever's happening, because presence can be so present with whatever comes in. And so then stress can release and feelings can be felt. And we can really start to open through these finer and finer feelings to recognize it's all the same. It's all the same aliveness. And as we open to know that the aliveness is holy, is so deeply sacred, we start to open to find out what God really is, and that God is in everything. Not because God wants us to suffer, no, because we create the idea of suffering in the mind, but that God is just life living itself in all its frequencies, vibrations, and variations. And that the invitation is to come to recognize in such a depth of presence that we open to the intelligence of our own consciousness, where we can actually recognize the mechanistic functioning of everything. And so we're not fooled by the appearance. We're not looking out there to say, how am I doing? What's happening? Am I being seen? Am I being heard? Is this an experience I like? How do I feel about it? Right? We're not going through that process because we're just rooted in happiness. We're just rooted in the being. So it doesn't matter. It's not to say that when something in the play of life happens that releases stress, that there are not feelings. It's not to say that we don't open to tenderness and compassion. We do. It's very, very profound, the depth that we open to tenderness and compassion, because we open to such a depth of compassion for the fragility of the human condition and how swayed the human can be when conditioned and protected, that in the openness of the heart that is patient and compassion, there's such a profound tenderness for how seriously the world can be taken and how that misunderstanding can create such a sense of misery, right? And in a way, opening to compassion and tenderness, it's not about feeling sorry for or pitying or anything like that. It's about, wow, in the compassion can feel the suffering of humanity in ignorance. You can actually feel the resonant field of the collective. You can feel the misery as a resonance, but you don't take that on and you don't feel miserable because of it, because of the depth of openness is just a compassion that just feels so tender, but simultaneously it supports and transmutes. It transmutes and supports the field. But of course, not by getting involved in story, because getting involved in story is, of course, collaboration with separation. It's a depth that just is so present with and just holds the presence without engaging in, oh, poor you. It just stays so present. But in that presence, there's an openness, a tenderness, a compassion that just really is love, right? So that's why if you are with someone that you have a closeness and deep care for, and they are struggling, it can bring such a feeling of tenderness. But to not get entangled in, I need to fix this, I need to make it better, and to see that if that kind of feeling comes up, it's often because you want to make yourself feel better, actually more than you want the other one to feel better. And really what's being invited is, can you be present with the feelings that come up in you? Can you not be taken out and need to fix? Can you actually just feel the often like an existential sense of grief, or I don't even really want to give the word grief to it. It's just the existential sense of separation, right? It's just the buzz, the buzz of misery. Let's say it's the buzz of separation. And really, if you feel the buzz of separation, don't collaborate with the picture of trying to fix it. Hold a presence for your companions and just feel what it brings up in your nervous system, because what it brings up in your nervous system allows there to be a deeper releasing and a deeper opening to compassion. So you can just feel such love and compassion without needing to act, right? Not needing to fix, not needing to rob your dear companions of what they are living through. We don't want to rob anyone of the grace of their divine plan, right? Because if we were to rob them in the moment by trying to fix, it's just going to come around again when you're not there to fix it for them. So let the divine plan play. Let the divine plan play. Let it break your heart open. Let it crack your heart open. Let everything that you see in your picture of the world crack your heart so wide, right? Whether it's to do with your beloved companions and family, whether it's to do with pictures you see of what might be happening in the world, all of that are just appearances on a screen, moving out of your consciousness and your entanglement with collective consciousness, to actually for you to see it, feel what happens inside you, and to not act in the world, put on your superhero cape, but to let your heart be blown open. Let your heart just crack open. And when your heart cracks open in the face of what you see, feel those feelings and don't resist. Let the stresses release. Let the protections be cracked open so you can open to a finer frequency of divine intelligence, where you know what is happening is it's just pictures on a screen. None of that is happening. None of that is there for me to react to. It's happening on the screen so that the sensations and aliveness in your nervous system can be transmuted and met, and the protections and the obscurations can be moved through, so that we can feel more deeply the true essence nature and be so present in the moment without moving, right? But we don't go to evaluation about the dark or the bad or the ignorant or the wrong. We just stay so present, knowing there's only one shining, radiant, luminous, divine wholeness. And everything is that shining and attempting to bring us deeper into the knowing of that oneness by its own means, by virtue of the ever way it is appearing. And of course, simultaneously, the deeper that we know the being and we can feel the resonance of true nature, we can nourish our recognition through resting in the felt sense of clarity. So here now, we've cleared a lot of obscurations, and let us just recognize here now the felt sense of being, the silence, the stillness, the alive presence, that there is a clarity here, an openness, a peace, a freedom, just in the felt sense of being, that we illuminate all the ways that we can distract. And in a way, it speaks to the laws of nature and unravels certain holding patterns that are habituated to distract, and is an invitation to come to presence. Notice the alive presence so that attention is shifted away from the appearance, away from the mind, and into the felt sense, through the felt sense of the nervous system, to the subtle perception of the felt sense of being. I am presence, just being here. And the subtle perception of just being is the open, awake field. And now this is the shift in perspective that we can open through witnessing and being aware of the moving, changing, the witnessing consciousness, the witnessing presence is this beautiful, spacious sanctuary where we can watch what is happening and moving and changing, and we can be aware, we can see it, we can check. Are you aware? Yes. Can you see the thoughts? That they move and change, they come and go? Yes. Can you see the character? Can you see the body and the character? Yes. Can you see the movement of the mind is like a creation of a story? Yes. Can you see the appearance of the world through the sense perception? Can you see how the mind moves to sense perception to evaluate? What's this smell? What's this taste? Right? What am I hearing? What am I seeing? What's the visual landscape? What's the soundscape? Right? All of it, sense perception is picking it up. The mind is evaluating it. But what about awareness? What about awareness? What's happening in awareness? Can you notice that awareness is just witnessing and watching, but is completely neutral? That awareness has no evaluation? That awareness is just watching? Awareness isn't making a reflection of, is that taste to my liking? Is that smell to my liking, right? What am I hearing? Is that okay? Am I comfortable? What am I seeing? Right. All of the ways. So the touch perception, it can be, what am I touching? Of course, in its densest frequency, but it's the felt sense. Let's open up to the felt sense, which is the sense perception of touch. Can we just touch the space around us with awareness, openness? Can we touch the sense of presence? Can we touch the sense of being? Can we open to listening without a listener, where we're actually, instead of projecting outwards to hear, to be like on guard, what am I hearing? What am I hearing? Can we drop back to the awareness, which is just openly receptive, and just receive the moment, receive the soundscape, just listen and receive the listening. What starts to happen, you may notice, is that listening starts to be noticed to be like a frequency, like a resonance, a vibration. That listening almost seems to have a sound of its own, which is like a silent sound, which is just a frequency. Listening and opening. Open so wide that you can receive the sounds in the environment. Can you receive the sounds that are inside your own physiology, inside your own ears, let's say, inside your own blood, inside your own brain? Can you receive the soundscape of what seems to be the external and the internal? And as you open to receive the soundscape, can you actually tell a difference? Can you notice that it starts to merge from the sound of the bird or the car or the bang and the whatever, right? The sound of your in your inner ear, your brain, your blood, your heartbeat. That when you really just open without evaluating all of the separate sounds, without labeling, you come to a finer frequency in listening, where listening is just the alive resonance. And the sense of listening is really all there is. It's like, oh, there's no one listening. It's just listening, right? It's just like awareness. There's no one being aware. There's just awareness. It might feel like, oh, but I'm listening. Oh, I'm aware. Okay, let it feel like that for a little bit longer. And let's go a little deeper, right? Because where this listening is listening, it's just listening. Where awareness is just aware, it's just aware, right? There's a certain freedom in this. Now, when there is a seeing, a looking, right? We're habituated to look out, to look at the screen. Now, because it's like a multi-dimensional screen, it's very alluring because it's multi-dimensional, because it seems so real, because the senses are bringing it so alive, and it seems to have such a depth, and it seems to be moving like a movie, right? But what if we just zoom out and just watch? Just watch, without popping out there through the eyes to say, what am I seeing? Do I like it? Is it this, right? Is it light? Is it dark? Is it this color, right? Is it what I want to see? Zoom out. Just let seeing just be here. Zoom out. Just see the whole picture. Like you're receiving the whole picture. Instead of looking at the picture and grasping for it, just zoom out, drop right back. Just receive it all. Receive the whole picture. Of course, this is if your eyes are open. If the eyes are closed, just rest here. But you know, it's a really good idea to let the eyes open at times and get used to receiving the whole picture. Because when we receive the whole picture from zoomed out absorption in the being. It doesn't matter what the picture is. This is how we come to freedom. This is how we could say, this is how we wake up. It's because we're not consumed by the picture. The picture doesn't matter, right? A herd of stomping elephants could just walk through here. It doesn't matter. It might jump a little. Oh, elephants. It doesn't matter, right? Just doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Big bang. Oh, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. The being is not disturbed. And this is what we want to come to recognize, is that it's not about the picture. It's not about the movie screen. It's about the deep sense of being. It's about discovering that there's something here that's not disturbed by the picture. Something here that's not disturbed. Now, let's just get more curious with what's not disturbed. The awareness that's watching is not disturbed. The openness is not disturbed. Openness doesn't close. Doesn't matter if you're seeing, if seeing is happening. It's to drop back and just be aware of the whole appearance. Receive it all. So we're dropping back deeper than sense perception. So we're no longer qualifying with mind thinking or sense perception. We're just right back as awareness, aware of the whole picture. So awareness is like the super sixth sense that includes all senses. That's why it sometimes gets called the sixth sense, like an intuition, right? It's because it includes sense perception, but it doesn't fragment, right? So we're really interested in what is here that doesn't fragment. Let's zoom out to find the awareness that isn't fragmenting the moment. Completely receiving the moment. Can you feel, notice that awareness is just aware? How big is awareness? How small is awareness? What if we don't use those words and we just say, what size is awareness? Where do you go to find out? What is happening to find out? Is awareness big? Is awareness small? What size is awareness? Where do you go to? What happens? What's the mechanistic happening within your direct experience? Does awareness have any boundaries? Can you find any edges? Be as interested as how you are looking and where you are looking. Be interested in your direct experience. Where are you looking for boundaries? Notice that you are able to look within your experience. So can you notice that awareness is able to be aware within the experience of awareing, right? So instead of the senses, we're awareing, right? We're just being aware. And as awareness is awareing within itself, to notice that the attention, as these questions come, and you start checking within direct experience, awareness starts to focus more within itself. Now, awareness can look at the moving, changing. Awareness can look, in a way, it's like looking outwards. Awareness can look and be aware of the picture, the appearance. Awareness can be aware of the thoughts, right? can you notice that awareness is not changed or disturbed by the thoughts, that awareness just stays steady, steady. Awareness is the kind of companion that you want to stay present and hang out with, because awareness is steady, consistent, reliable. Right? Awareness is just here. Awareness, notice, is still. Awareness is presence. Just to check these statements and verify them if they are true in your direct experience. And if they're not, be aware of that. Just be open. No conclusions, just openness. Just awareness, checking within its own aware direct experience, its own awareing, to see. And we're opening to witnessing. We're witnessing the moving, changing, like a presence consciousness. That consciousness is so present with itself, and it's checking, it's watching. It gets more interesting as the awareness starts to notice, yes, can confirm I'm aware of all that's moving and changing. And then awareness starts to really recognize, well, I'm also completely independent of everything that's moving and changing. I'm not disturbed. So then what am I? And here arises true inquiry, right? Self-inquiry is the self itself. Atma Vichara it's the self-inquiry, it's the self, the true nature inquiring into its own nature. It's where awareness says, well then what am I? What am I that's not disturbed by the thoughts? What am I that's free somehow of the body? What am I that is just here, still and ever present? And it's that the self itself, we could say the consciousness itself or the being itself, inquires within its own direct experience, its own intimate experience of itself. And what am I? And it's able to confirm, awareness is able to confirm, I'm just this. I'm just this. This is it. This. Right? And it's such a moment of intimacy for awareness just to be aware of itself. It's like all sense of duality for a moment just folds in. It's like you turn inside out. What am I? I'm awareness. What am I? I'm awareness. Awareness itself is aware, right? It's not the mind or the person that's having an experience that's aware. It's so much more intimate. It's awareness itself, waking up to its own awakeness, waking up to realize that there are no edges here. There's no disturbance here. There are no boundaries here, right? There's just awareness. Wow. What does it feel like to just be awareness, to recognize there's only awareness here, or only being here, or only consciousness here, right? So as consciousness is consciously awake to itself, there's a sense of an aliveness in the presence, because that is what consciousness is. It's this aliveness in the moment where the consciousness is just conscious of being here, present, of its own presence, of its own consciousness. It's awake and aware of itself. So this is where the shift in perspective happens, is that the perspective shifts to being me looking out through sense perception and evaluating the world through the mind, draws back, zooms out, and recognizes, well, what I am is not the character that's looking through sense perception and evaluating the world and moving in a mind that's just entangled in its own story and getting its own needs met. What I am in truth is this awake awareness, zoomed out with a much broader perspective, able to see the appearance without being disturbed by it, able to stay here, deep, happy, content, open, whatever is moving and changing. That stillness, this silent presence, is never ever changed. And in the recognition of this, there's such an openness to feel the freedom of what you are. That you are this freedom, that you're not bound in any way, and nor have you ever been by the story of the me and the mind. That the perspective shifts when deep in the innermost being, in the awareness itself, that this self-inquiry happens. And when true self-inquiry happens, and there's a readiness, a maturity, the question of the self asking itself, who am I? It ends separation, it ends the delusion of the mind, and the perspective shifts to the recognition, what I am is awake awareness. I've never been a person. And the whole felt sense of your nervous system is suddenly flooded with a finer resonance. In the recognition, in the opening, the nervous system is flooded with a finer resonance. And it feels like your body is flooded with heat or a finer resonance, something more alive, more vibrancy, more life. And in a way it is. Even in the physiology, there's like a flood. And the whole sense is of being more open. And there's a flood of a finer resonance of energy. It comes into the physiology, and you can feel it even in the sense of the body. And sometimes it can be felt as very, very hot. Sometimes it can be felt as just like, whoa, I can't contain the aliveness. Good news, you don't have to. You never did contain it. It doesn't need to be contained. It's totally uncontained. But what you're feeling now is that your body, what you've known as your body, is actually vibrating at a finer resonance of no location, no fixed abode. It's resonating at the resonance of uncontained, unlimited, infinite, awake field. But you can still feel it on the level, on the more surface level of body, because the body now is like an antenna for the divine resonance, right? So this is what we're speaking of, refining the felt sense, because all we really know is this felt sense of the nervous system or consciousness. And we think that it's in the body, and we think that we are the body. But what we are in truth is a body of light, right? So in this felt sense here now of feeling that you're the awareness, you are everywhere, you are openness. Feel the resonance, that it gets a little more alive, a little finer. Notice that it still feels like you're the same old nervous system that you're experiencing it through, the same feeling of the body. But what we're opening to is that the body, the physical body, perhaps, is not quite what we've been thinking it is, right? It's not really actually the physical layer of the bones and the systems and the organs and the skin, that actually you are a body of light. You're a much more subtle body than has been imagined. So as we open to a finer resonance, the sense of the body is much finer and more widespread, can feel the subtle frequency. The sense might be, well, it feels like it's in the body, but when you just feel the sensation, when you just feel the resonance of the aliveness, can you feel that it's not actually contained? Even if you can feel sensation, let's say, for example, in the hands can be fun to explore because the hands feel like they're tingling. They can feel like they're tingling, can feel like they have sensation. But when you just focus upon sensation, is the sensation actually inside your hands, your fingers, your thumbs? Is the sensation inside, or is it outside as well, right? Just to notice that the hands can be fun because you suddenly feel like you've got really, really big hands, like Mickey or Minnie Mouse, right? You've suddenly got really, really, really big hands. And on a certain level, they feel like, well, these are my hands. They're resonating. They're so alive and they're so big. And yet they also look like the same as they ever did. So, and actually, whose hands are these? Whose are these hands? Oh, because you're aware from a perspective of not being the me. You can see everything that you thought you were. You can feel it on a certain level, but be aware that it starts to shift. Don't be so ready to just want to put it all back in the box, like the Jack in the Box, right? This is like an infinite Jack in the Box, that as you explode out of the box of the body mind, you can't actually fit it back in. It's not supposed to ever be contained. It's never been contained. And what we're opening to is to recognize, oh, this has never been contained. This has never been restricted. This has never been fragmented. Sense perception has never fragmented what I am. Mind and story has never divided me from anything, right? So we're following back through witnessing consciousness and being present to the whole picture, to this shift in perspective where we're zoomed out and we can see the appearance. But we're so much more engaged now with the fine resonance of the nervous system, and recognizing the sense of the nervous system is not so much maybe inside the physical body, but that it's resonating, vibrating everywhere. And actually, this is the consciousness that's alive and awake everywhere. It's in the environment. Yes, it's inside what you feel to be your body, but it's outside as well. And we start to notice through what we're speaking of here with the hands, that actually the body, the sense of the body isn't quite as tight as we thought it was, right? You can explore where you're sitting right now, where you're sitting. Feel the sense of where your body meets the seat, right? Where your body meets the seat. That there's just a resonance there. There's sensation, aliveness. Can you actually feel Is there a boundary between your body and the seat? When you just open to sensation, can you feel in the resonance that it's actually all the same? If you feel a sense of an edge, go right to the edge and feel the sensation of edge. And then keep feeling. It's like being one with edge. Is there an edge? We could say be one with edge and feel edge until there is no more edge. Feel the boundlessness, the freedom and spaciousness. And then notice that this felt sense of the spaciousness, the sensation, the aliveness, is it any different to the sense of being? Is it any different to the sense of the nervous system, the sense of presence? If there feels like a difference, find out in your direct experience, what is the difference? Feel deeper into it and find out, well, what is the difference here? Is it a different frequency? Notice, do there feel like there's more than one frequency? Is there really more than one frequency? It's okay if there is. Just be so present with your direct experience, and that you can look as awareness in the resonance of your own nervous system. You can feel more deeply. So feel more deeply, like be one with the sensation. Just notice what happens when you're one with the sensation. Do you feel more openness? Do you feel an emptiness? Is there a relationship between this sense of the resonance, the sense of the sensation of, let's say, where your body meets the chair, or the sensation of your hand seeming to be much bigger than what is been known as the skin and the bones of the hand? The sense of your nervous system? Can you feel that it's bigger and more boundless? Can you notice, where do you look? Where are you looking? Where is this exploration taking place? Can you notice that the mind is not involved in this exploration? That you're exploring somehow internally, but what are you inside of? Don't look for answers with the mind. Let the questions open your experience of being inside your own consciousness. Let it open the experience of your own consciousness wider, more spacious. And the felt sense of more spacious is actually more of a resonance, right? So we're opening and opening. Can feel more alive, or can feel more deeply peaceful. More deeply peaceful. The peace is the silence, the stillness of pure presence. So it's not that silence or peace is better than aliveness. It's all one. But as we open, our nervous systems are unique and very, very subtle. And the ways that we open can seem to be different, but it's all part of the one. And really what's happening is we're opening through the sense of separation. We're opening through the sense of individuality and uniqueness to find where we are one, where we are the same, where we are resonating as the awake field, where we are resonating as the one being, the one self. And when we find the sameness, we find a sense of openness and freedom and aliveness. We find a sense of life being so alive and living itself and flowing within itself. We find the intelligence and the flows of consciousness here, right? And here in the oneness, the great glory is that we can actually celebrate our uniqueness and sense of individuality even more, because it's not a protected sense of separation. It's a fine flow of laws of nature that are in absolute accord and attunement with the whole awake field, the whole divine light resonance, right? This is where it's something like a murmuration of birds, of starlings would be mirroring that kind of consciousness, or where we see herds of animals together, or the way that ants or bees work together, right? In nature mirrors to us the gesture and the flow of life in the ways that she plays out in appearance. So this is what it is to be one, right? It's just a grand gesture to be one with life living itself. It's the grandest gesture, really, life living itself, that we're one with that. And then in the oneness, our unique laws of nature, which on a certain level come forward as humanity, there's one flow of life, the whole of humanity, right? And then within humanity, more subtle flows of life, the beings, right? So, and then the whole consciousness, we can see the different subsets of the birds and the animals and the trees and the flowers and space and stars, and right, we can see all of this. What we start to notice is we can see all of it. We're bigger than all of it. We're bigger than universe, right? We're bigger. We're the infinite, unbounded spaciousness, consciousness that can see it all, the awareness that's awake to it all, right? So we're zooming out and we're zooming out and we're zooming out, and we're aware of universes within universes and galaxies, and we're not smaller than any of that. We're bigger, but when we start to be aware and awake in this field, bigger and smaller isn't like a measure in the way that we, through our sense perception, see size. We're speaking about infinity. Infinity is not measurable. Infinity doesn't refer to a size that's bigger. So we speak about bigger, greater, vaster. But when we touch infinity, we break orbit from measure. Infinity is the boundlessness, and the boundlessness is right here. It's freedom, the boundlessness, right? There's no measure. Just like time disappears into eternity, and eternity is the ever-present now. So we escape space and time to the infinite eternal, right? We're not bound anymore as consciousness by space and time. We're infinite, unbounded, but right here, now, we are the infinite, right? We're made up of the infinite light resonances, right? All of this, even though it feels solid, right? Even though it feels solid, it's made up of light resonating at frequencies. And we're not bound by time. We're ever present now, right? Eternity is presence, ever present to itself. And in the zoomed out perspective, The felt sense of being is infinite and boundless, not bound by story, body, mind, not bound by world, not bound by appearances, not bound by anything, and not bound by time and history, past, present, not bound by memory, right? So the sense of presence, the sense of being is unbounded and ever present. And the felt sense of being, it just knows this. It's the intelligence of being that just knows this within the direct experience of itself. And so it is just to feel in the felt sense of being the ever-present openness. And how we feel it as we start to open to this is that we feel that we have no edges. The felt sense of being has no edges, has no location, is just here and just now, not of time, not of space, just a live life before time and space, before thought, before names and roles and story, that in truth, this presence being is prior to everything. And it's only here that we start to be able to open to what holy is. Holy is here. Sacred is most definitely here. But it's not anything to do with concepts and ideas. And that's where we find here what God is, that God is just what is. God is freedom from mind. God is freedom from story and body. That God is the flowing creative field of intelligence, ever free, ever fresh, right? Pure consciousness. And pure consciousness is flowing within itself to free itself. And it creates the appearance of beings and pictures and lives. It flows in these laws of nature and creates the appearance in order to know itself, experience itself. Really, in all of that, it's loving itself. That's all. It's only ever loving itself. Now, what loving itself is knowing only itself. To love, in truth, loving itself is utter presence, is no separation, is zero, right? Love is zero. Love is not an emotion that is a bargaining tool or about human relationships. Love just is. What is, when we open, as we open here to the resonance of being and what is, we open to just being. And that this moment, just where we started, is just as it is, just like this. No superimpositions of stories, no projections. There's just this incredible divine reality living itself, open and free. And as we really open to this, we're completely too, let's say, free from collective consciousness on a certain level, because we're just not engaged in the way the mind feels like, I've got to follow the news, I've got to do this, I've got to know about. Just here, it just does, there's just no pull, because living here is so rich and deep, right? Just in the being. And when you're in the being, you can just feel the freedom and how nothing matters. It's not about, I've got to, all of this, right? You're just one in love with all beings. And you can really feel how just being this love is the greatest service and the greatest love for all beings, is not to play out relationship dynamics and to please this one and to move in this way. It's just about being this love, about being this freedom and shining as this love, loving as this love. And the deeper that we are awake and in the knowing of this unified field that gets called the Atman or Brahman or divine wholeness, as it opens and opens to finer and finer resonances of its own light through the nervous systems as can be opened to, right? So this is what we are opening to here. We have to let go of the mind's ideas that there's some kind of worldly happening that awakening is, because it's not. It's opening out of the worldly. And as long as we think that it's some kind of experience that is then worldly, we're missing the refinement and the deepening to really live this, to really live in the depth of clarity and freedom that divine wholeness is. And it is so profoundly possible in this lifetime, right? So we are opening and refining and feeling the resonance, zooming out, shifting perspective, shifting the perspective, right? As we start to recognize what that perspective shift is really speaking about, we can open within our own direct experience. We can zoom out and realize that the shifted perspective is available to all beings, but it's the refinement of the nervous system and the amount of sattva, the amount of clarity there is flowing in the life that really depends on how deeply we can abide here. So let's rest here. Let's rest here in this profoundly beautiful, open field of being. Notice the direct experience. The direct experience is how you are receiving the pointings and the questions and what you are noticing, because you're never trying to attain to what you've heard of or someone else's expectations for you or even the mind's expectations for you. You're just opening to the naturalness of what you already are. You're just opening in truth, in honesty, to the felt sense of being and the resonance that you can attune to of your own natural being, and just resting here where nothing else is being given attention but the felt sense of presence. And here the stillness, the silence, the openness, the aliveness, and most important, that you can confirm in your direct experience that there's a certain clarity within the awareness, being aware of itself, the being itself, that there's a clarity and a kind of intimacy, a direct ability to confirm within that this is being directly experienced, and this is the truth of who you are. And this is the, let's say, the simple truth, the simple being And opening to this being is opening to your own consciousness. And as you open to your own consciousness, you open to the field of intelligence, and you open out of the sense of being someone. And yet the refinement into the unity, the full knowing of the unity, the oneness, it requires that you're going to feel like you go backwards and forwards, even though you don't. You're going to feel like you go backwards and forwards, gathering pieces of yourself from the world that you have created with your mind. It's like you have to tidy up and collapse the projections that you've created. But the more that you rest in the being, the projections naturally just start to collapse. They just give it up. They just fall in. But what binds you, what pulls the attention, what creates resistance, where there's wanting, that's the play that in a way has to be collapsed. The projections have to be collapsed. And that's where the refinement continues in the human life. But the deeper that we know the being, the more undisturbed we are in the being. We can collapse the projections of the character with more smoothness because we're not attached. We know it's an appearance, and there's more of an ability to rest deep and unmoved in the face of whatever comes forward. And of course, as we collapse the projections, more of the divine life is recognized to be lived on the surface, and life is smoother and more lovely. So everyone is in this process of opening and deepening and refining. Everyone is awakening because consciousness is awakening. It's not someone that's awakening. You're not choosing this. It's not a journey. It's not your journey. It's just the flow of life, of consciousness, awakening deeper, out of time and space, out of its collective binding of the human condition to more of its purity and freedom and divine nature. And what are we in our uniqueness and our human lives? We are vehicles for this. We are just vehicles for this. Who knows what is happening? Who knows? Perhaps there are worlds and realms that are evolving and evolving in the collective shifting of consciousness. And I think we're going to stop there because we're about to open into a whole other fantastically wonderful area. But yes, that will all come forward. It will all come forward. But it is just to say, let's say that the evolution of humanity is such a profound evolution within consciousness. So we can hear that there are other more evolved realms, right? And that this realm is quite dense. And of course, if there's a density, there's this possibility for this realm to evolve, and the profundity of what that really means. Let's just say that humanity at this time can't even understand the profundity of what that means, right? It's all timeless, it's all here, and yet there's this incredible evolution somehow happening, and we are vehicles for that. And the more that we come to resonate in the recognition that none of this is personal, in a way, it's not even service. It's not a service in that way. It's just that we're one with the whole mechanism, evolutionary mechanism of consciousness opening to its finer and finer frequencies. So the more that we can get out of the way with the stories of personal and me and mine, and I want this and I want that, we can really open to the truth of what this is all about, and live the glory of this, live the glory of this